What's up YouTube, Trashy here, and to celebrate recently hitting 30,000 subscribers, thank you for that by the way, today I'm gonna finally do one of those things I wish I knew before playing Stardew Valley videos. Specifically, 30 things I wish I knew before playing Stardew Valley, because 30,000 would be ridiculous and we would be here forever. So with that being said, and with a big ol' sign on the screen that says spoilers ahead, let's get right into it. Starting with my number one, my top dog, my main squeeze, the thing that I tell absolutely everybody about this game, and the thing that you're all probably really sick and tired of hearing me say, there is no wrong way to play Stardew Valley. When I first started playing Stardew back in 2019, the game had been out for a few years already and there was so much information online. And a lot of it was basically just straight up telling me that I was playing the game wrong if I didn't do things a certain way. And while I appreciate a little clickbait as much as the next YouTuber, back then I was just a viewer and a lot of the advice that I was seeing seemed kinda demanding. And I kinda fell for it. I ended up playing in a way that optimized absolutely everything, and I felt the need to accomplish my goals as quickly as possible, and it ended up kind of ruining the fun for me. Now this is not to say that playing in a way that optimizes everything isn't fun for some people, of course it is, and fun is entirely subjective. What's fun for you might not be fun for the next person, and that's okay. But I do feel like there's an imbalance when it comes to tips and tricks for any game, not just Stardew Valley. You'll look up something innocent and be met with dozens of videos with titles and thumbnails telling you that you're doing it wrong, and I don't like that. The only wrong way to play Stardew Valley is by not having fun. Do whatever you want. Turn your farm into a beekeeping paradise and sell honey for profit. Raise slimes and let them take over the land. You're not playing wrong if you don't grow the most expensive crop and turn it into the most expensive wine for the most profit. But if that's what you want to do, then hell yeah, go ahead. My point is, nobody can tell you what to do or how to play, but it can be very easy to feel like you're not playing right if you don't over-optimize or do every last thing that every single YouTuber tells you to do. I'm not your mom, you don't have to listen to me. I'm just here to give some tips, tricks, and advice that might or might not be useful to you. Also, because there's always at least one smart aleck in my comments that likes to go on and on about the wrong ways that you can play Stardew Valley, I am quite literally quoting the official Stardew Valley guidebook, so is all I have to say to you, respectfully. Moving on, the second thing that I wish that I knew before I started playing Stardew is the sheer amount of additional settings hidden in the game that can make your life so much easier. First of all, checking the always show tool hit location setting can make it so that you can always see the outline of where your tools are going to hit. This can save you many a headache, including headaches caused by accidentally pickaxing the only ancient seed that you have that took you many hours of grinding bugs in the mines to find. No, I'm still not over it. You can zoom in and out in your settings menu, but you can also make it so that these zoom buttons are permanently on your screen so you can zoom in and out whenever you want. You can turn bomb flashing off using this setting here, which is an immensely helpful setting, especially if you're particularly sensitive to flashing lights but still like to bomb the hell out of Skull Cavern while you're there. If you're prone to running around with items above your head and you accidentally talk to someone, you might end up giving away something that you really wanted to keep or gifting something nasty to your favorite villager. You can check the item stowing setting, which allows you to put items away with your main action button, which is different depending on what platform you're playing, and you'll never give a gift away accidentally again. If you turn on advanced crafting settings, you'll be able to see many more details when crafting, including how many materials you have available and how many of the item you've already crafted. Did you know that you can change the sound that happens when you've got a fish on your line? In all honesty, I didn't actually know that you could do this until I went to make this video and I was double checking the settings, and I don't know how I managed to overlook it so many times, but I did. Here are the different sounds that you can change it to. Number 3 on the list of things I wish I knew before playing is that storage can get out of hand real quick, especially if you like to hoard things as much as I do. Before you know it, you can't remember where you put your Wumba statue and your sap's just all over the place. For years, I insisted on slapping chests down whenever I needed to on my farm, but I've grown since then. Now what I usually do is I place a few chests down outside to start with, and then as soon as I can get a shed going, I'll set up a proper storage system in there. You can just slap down a bunch of chests and dump all your stuff if you want to, or you can set up a slightly more sophisticated system. You can use signs to designate what's in each chest, both image signs and text signs, or you can use my preferred method, color coding. You can use your own personal color codes like green for fruit and veg and red for monster drops, etc. Or you can just be unhinged like me and sort all of your items by color. So everything that's green goes in the green chest, everything that's red goes in the red chest, and so on. No matter what way you decide to do it, setting up a good few chests for storage early on is always a good idea. I like to also leave an extra chest somewhere near the exit towards town where I stash all of my artifacts that I need to bring to the museum, geodes that need opening, and gifts for villagers. Basically, everything that I might want to bring with me on a trip to town. This one might be a hot take, but passing out really is not that big of a deal. The biggest consequence to passing out is that you can lose 10% of your money up to a total of 1,000 gold, or 10% up to a total of 2,500 gold if you pass out on Ginger Island. That's not really that much in the grand scheme of things. Sure, in the early game it might sting a little, but once you're in the mid to late game and you have a little bit of gold built up, it's fine. The other negative side effect of passing out that tends to turn people off staying up until the 2 AM mark is the fact that you will wake up the next day with less energy restored than usual. However, if you level up a skill during the day and pass out, you won't wake up exhausted the next day and you will have recovered all of your energy. Also, fun fact about passing out, if you pass out inside your home or another player's home, you won't lose money at all. And this brings me to my next point. Time is an illusion. When I first started playing Stardew, I was under the impression that I had to stay up and thread the needle every single night just to get the most out of my day. I mean, there is a lot to do, so it stands to reason that you'd want to stay up all night every night, but hear me out. You actually don't have to. If you've finished your tasks for the day, watered your plants, done your shopping, talked to whoever you wanted to talk to, dug up your artifact spots or whatever else it is you wanted to do, and it's still only 6 PM, you can just go to sleep. There's no rule that states that you need to stay up, and I find that it can be a little exhausting trying to find reasons to extend your day when the thing that you really want to do depends on you making it through the days slightly quicker. A day in single-player Stardew lasts around 15 minutes or even more if you pause time a lot, which happens when you eat, move from one area to another, fish, and of course when you actually pause the game. This means that 1 week in Stardew Valley is an hour and 45 minutes of gameplay if you're staying up until 2 AM each night. And not everybody has that kind of time to play their games. Some of us, including myself, might not have much of a social life outside of gaming, so dropping a couple of hours in a game is really not that big of a deal. But a lot of people have lives, families, obligations, small children to take care of, you name it. So skipping out on a few in-game hours every day so that you can achieve your goals faster is totally understandable. It's time for another incredibly piping hot take. I don't think that Joja Mart is that bad at all, and I wish I didn't have the influence of practically every single Stardew Valley player talking smack about Joja Mart before I started playing Stardew. If you are in any way familiar with Stardew Valley, you will know that people simply detest Joja Mart and will go as far as to be really weird about it in the comments. Joja Mart is widely hated by Stardew Valley players, but it is also a very viable alternative to completing the community center. If you don't like the feeling of having to stay on top of everything and double checking if you need something from the community center or not, or if the thought of having to wait a year in-game to get something that you're missing isn't something that you're too fond of, you can achieve the exact same unlocks and progress via the Joja Mart route. Also, Joja Mart opens every single day of the week and it stays open until 11 PM. Yes, it's more expensive, but how often have you really needed to buy seeds on a Wednesday or after 5 PM to be able to plant them in time for a good harvest, and just not been able to do it because you refuse to shop at Joja Mart? I'm not saying that anybody is playing the game wrong, but putting yourself in a situation where you're forced to wait a year because you won't shop in the made-up video game supermarket is cutting it pretty close. It doesn't matter. Trust me, buying a few things from Joja Mart because you're in a rush and need your seeds ASAP is not that serious. It's never been that serious. It is in fact a video game. Moving on, you would do well to remember that the TV exists. During my first few playthroughs, I kind of just forgot all about the TV, and it took me a very long time to learn all of the Queen of the Sauce recipes. Granted, back then we didn't have the Queen of Sauce cookbook, which teaches you all of the TV recipes that you're missing. For real though, checking the TV every single day for the weather is more helpful than you'd think. If you know it's going to rain tomorrow, you can water your plants, drop your watering can off to be upgraded, and get it back on the second day without missing a single day of watering. The Weather Channel will also let you know when there's going to be green rain in the summer, and this is handy because green rain causes explosive growth all around the valley, and it heavily increases the chances of any planted normal tree seeds to straight up become mature trees overnight. So, if you see green rain coming, get your tree seeds out. You can also eventually unlock a channel that gives you all of the fishing information that you could ever need thanks to a specific request that Pam makes. The FIBS will tell you what fish are available to catch during any given season, which is incredibly useful, and I always forget that it exists. I wish that I knew exactly how useful Crystalariums could be before I started playing Stardew Valley. I'm sure many of you already know the Crystalarium meta, where you reproduce jades and trade them for staircases at the Desert Trader, and then use those staircases to get super far down the Skull Cavern. But Crystalariums are useful for so much more than just jades. Diamonds, for example, might take a whole 5 days to duplicate in a Crystalarium, but they are a universally liked gift and straight up loved by 8 different villagers. Aside from that, hoarding diamonds is good for making large amounts of fairy dust, for using at the forge when upgrading your weapons, and for trading to the Desert Trader for triple shot espressos. Not to mention the fact that diamonds sell for 750 gold, or 974 gold if you have the gemologist profession. Rubies take a couple of days to duplicate, but they can be traded at the Desert Trader for spicy eels, which give you a nice little luck and speed buff. Having a stash of these stowed away for daily use can be pretty handy. And if you're wondering why luck is so important, you can check out this video that compares good versus bad luck and everything that it affects, with the link in the description below. Quartz, which I've always struggled to say correctly, can be duplicated at a rate of 2 per day if you stay on top of your Crystalariums, but what is it useful for aside from making refined quartz? Well, you can get 1 bomb per 5 quartz from the Desert Trader. If you have a decent farm setup, you can save yourself a lot of money on bombs, or even materials if you prefer to craft them. Emeralds take the same amount of time as rubies, but you can trade them to the Desert Trader on Fridays for cheese. If you're not very big on farm animals and processing the materials they give you, and you're at a point in your game where you have more staircases than you know what to do with, you can start cranking out emeralds and buy yourself a whole lot of cheese for healing instead. Speaking of animals, they can be snatched up in the middle of the night in a wild animal attack. I didn't actually know this until recently, and I feel like I've gotten pretty lucky over the years because it's never happened to me without me trying to get it to happen, and even then it took a while. But still, it would have been great to know this before I started playing, because the amount of times that I've accidentally created the perfect storm for an animal to go missing is kind of scary. If you leave your animals outside at night with the barn or coop door closed, there is a very small chance that one of them will get taken by a wild animal. You will hear this terrifying noise in the middle of the night, and in the morning, the rest of your animals will show a concerning message that says that they look stressed and paranoid. It seems like something bad happened last night. Slingshots are overpowered for exploring Skull Cavern. I don't like to use them much for actual combat situations, even though they can do some amazing damage when equipped with iridium ore as ammo, but it just seems a little expensive to keep up, especially considering the fact that the entire reason that I tend to go to Skull Cavern in the first place is to farm iridium ore. I much prefer loading them with explosive ammo. Explosive ammo shot from slingshots only explodes when it comes into contact with either a wall or a monster. So, aiming towards large clusters of rocks near walls or monsters floating around rocks is the way to go. You unlock the recipe for explosive ammo at level 8 combat, although once unlocked you can buy 1 explosive ammo for 300 gold each at the Adventurers Guild. It costs 1 iron bar and 2 coal to make 5 of them if you prefer crafting, and I know that neither of those sound really viable, but hear me out. If you're in the late game, you probably have a decent stack of money to spare on some explosive ammo. But even if you don't, all you need is a couple of days farming in the mines and you'll have yourself a nice hefty sack of explosive ammo, which brings me to my next point. The mines are so incredibly easy to farm for a lot of different resources. I used to think that once you cleared a floor, it would stay that way for the rest of the day and only reset once you sleep, but that absolutely is not the case. If you enter the mines and completely clean a floor of every single rock and enemy that it has, when you leave via the ladder and re-enter, you will find that the floor layout is the exact same, but different rocks and enemies have appeared. This means that you can basically farm any type of ore every single day. The easiest and quickest way to do this is to pick a floor, say floor 41 if you're looking for iron and coal for some explosive ammo, and just spam it all day. This floor is small enough to see everything that it has without having to explore, so you can basically just get here, gauge how much iron and how many coal sprites it has, farm the necessary resources, rinse and repeat. If you get there and there's nothing worthwhile on the floor, you can just leave out the ladder and reset the floor. This is without a doubt the quickest way to farm iron. And if you have monster musk to spray and a burglar's ring on, you can also farm insane amounts of coal. Of course, if resetting the same floor over and over again is a bit too boring for you, you can always just farm a few floors at a time and then reset the floors every now and then. Another great trick with the mines, especially for farming combat experience, is that infested floors stay infested all day. The ideal way to take advantage of this would be to find an infested floor right after an elevator floor, like 71, 81, 91, etc. That way, you can easily repeatedly farm the floor for combat experience and monster drops as many times as you'd like. And the deeper the infested floor the better, as the harder monsters give more experience. Now let's talk about panning. Once you get the glittering boulder removed from the bridge right beside the entrance to the mines, Willy gives you a copper pan. If you're anything like me, you got that pan from Willy, you popped it in a chest, and then promptly forgot that it ever existed. I wish somebody had told me how incredibly useful the pan was before I started playing Stardew, because oh my god, it is one of my favourite tools now. Granted, when I started playing, you actually couldn't upgrade the pan, which you can now do all the way up to Iridium. Now, panning spots are notoriously difficult to spot and find. They pop up for a few seconds and promptly disappear, and they can pop up off screen as long as there's water. However, this area here on Ginger Island is ideal for panning. It's very easy to see any panning spots that appear, and you can also turn the in-game music down to listen out for the sound cue, which sounds like this. Aside from that, like we just mentioned, you can upgrade your pan. This is relevant for a couple of reasons. Higher upgrades on your pan means that you can find more ore and more special items that aren't ore, including clothes, furniture, gems, artifacts, mystery boxes, and lucky rings. The base copper pan can find up to 9 ores and just 1 special item, whereas iridium pans can find up to 12 ores and 4 special items, but that's not all. When using an iridium pan, there is a high chance that another panning spot appears right after panning in the first spot, so you can chain a bunch of them together. Luck can also affect the special item that you get from panning, increasing your base chance of finding special items and more notably improving your chances of finding furniture, clothing, and most importantly, lucky rings. So if you combine an iridium pan, a good luck day, luck buffs, and this spot on Ginger Island, you can make absolute bank. To prove it, I went there for an entire day on a good luck day with a magic rock candy and a ginger ale for my luck buff and an otherwise empty inventory. And I finished the day with 54 iridium ore as well as a bunch of other ores, a lot of omni geodes, and most importantly, 2 lucky rings. That is absolutely worth a day of your time and a magic rock candy. Side note, if you want to know exactly how you can get your hands on multiple magic rock candies, you can check out this video, which should be in the description below. I always forget to upgrade my trash can. To be honest, I didn't even know it was a thing for the longest time when I started playing. If you're at home, you can obviously just yeet stuff into your shipping bin, but how many times have you had to ditch stuff in the middle of a skull cavern run just to make space for better stuff? Or how many times have you left stuff behind because you didn't have space for it? If you have an iridium quality trash can, you can just throw anything you don't need in the garbage and you'll get a little money back for your troubles, specifically 60% of the initial value. Now this won't work for furniture or clothing, unfortunately, so you're just going to have to dump all of those cowboy hats from treasure rooms the old-fashioned way. Speaking of cowboy hats, I wish somebody had told me that dressers were a thing in Stardew Valley. These bad boys hold unlimited amounts of clothing, shoes, and rings. If you're like me, who used to just keep all of your extra clothing in multiple chests that you would definitely forget about, well now you don't have to. If you choose the Meadowlands farm, you will start with a dresser in your house. However, you can just buy one from Robin. In fact, she stocks different types of dressers depending on the day that you go. On Mondays, she stocks oak furniture and oak dressers. On Wednesdays, she stocks birch furniture and birch dressers. And if it's raining and she's working on a Tuesday, which she doesn't do unless it's raining, she sells walnut furniture and walnut dressers. One thing to note about dressers is that unlike chests, you can pick them up when they have stuff in them. And you can also misplace them. Not that I'd ever misplace a dresser inside a chest and forget that I had it for like a year. Who would do such a silly thing? You can have multiple dressers if you want for storing different things, like one for clothes, one for rings, and one for shoes, and at least you can't accidentally throw a dresser out if it has stuff in it, which would be disastrous. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I used to keep actual physical notes in a notepad on each villager's reactions to the gifts that I would give them. I found out much later that the game does indeed keep track of those things for you. If you go to the relationship tab and click on the character that you want to know more about, you can find a list of their loved, liked, neutral, and disliked gifts, as long as you've gifted them to that particular NPC already. You can also find out some of the villagers' likes and dislikes through dialogue, cutscenes, and other secrets that you can find dotted around the valley. And these will also end up noted down in each villager's gift log. Speaking of gifting stuff to villagers, I never noticed before that all villagers have a little circle next to their portrait, which actually tells you what your friendship level with them is depending on the color of the circle. You can also hover your cursor over the circle to see how many hearts you have with that person, which is super useful. Now, I've played a few multiplayer runs of Stardew Valley, and I used to always complain about the fact that if you choose separate money at the start of the playthrough, you can't then send money to the other people that you're playing with. But I was incredibly, very wrong. You actually can send your friends gold on farms with separate gold using this ledger here in Lewis's house. What's more, the host of the game can actually change it from separate to shared money and vice versa. I have been playing the game for years and complained many times about this particular feature, and when I found out that I was just straight up wrong, I was both embarrassed and annoyed at myself for not just looking it up. I literally never once made a fish pond on my first 3 or 4 farms, but they're actually pretty useful for passively gathering resources and also for making quite a bit of money. Let's have a look at some of the, in my opinion, best fish ponds to have. Keeping sea cucumbers doesn't actually make much money at all, but you can regularly harvest a sea cucumber here and there from your fish pond and use it to make a Lucky Lunch, the food with the second highest luck buff in the game, right behind Magic Rock Candy. Lucky Lunch offers a +3 to your luck buff, and when cooked with Key's special seasoning, it gives a +4 luck buff. So keep any sea cucumbers you catch in the early game because they will come in handy later on. Super cucumbers have a small chance to produce 1 to 3 iridium ore every single day if you have at least 9 of them in a pond. You can start catching these guys as early as summer year 1 and then start building up a nice base and completing their quests. This is incredibly helpful for those that detest going to the Skull Cavern but still want to accumulate a little iridium over time. If that describes you, you might want to check out my beginner's guide to the Skull Cavern, which you can find in the description below. Stingray ponds are great for producing a bunch of different resources, including cinder shards, dragon teeth, and battery packs. When I unlock Ginger Island, I like to catch a few stingrays as soon as possible and pop them into a pond. At maximum capacity, this is probably one of the best ponds in the game for resources. Lava eels have a chance to produce cave jellies, gold ore, magma geodes, and spicy eels, another great luck food. However, that's not why they're on this list. Lava eel roe sells for 380 gold, and aged lava eel roe sells for 760 gold. Even better, aged lava eel roe with the artisan profession buff sells for 1064 gold, which is wild and great for essentially passively making a decent chunk of money. Speaking of good money, legendary fish ponds are one of the best sources of money in the entire game. Specifically, Legend 2 fish ponds because you can catch multiple. Legend 2 roe, just on its own, without aging and without the artisan profession, is worth 2,530 gold. If you age it and you have the artisan profession, one aged roe sells for 7,084 gold. Now, the wiki says that these ponds have a chance to produce just 1 roe a day, but that is incorrect. I'm not entirely sure what the maximum amount of roe is because I don't understand code, nor do I know how to dive into the code of the game to find these things out. All I know is that I regularly get more than 1, and you can make serious money from these ponds. If you want proof, I have left this video in the description. It's also worth mentioning that golden animal crackers used in fish ponds double the output of the ponds. Not just roe, but also the loot and the other items that they can produce. Much like the way that the seasons constantly change, almost nothing is permanent in this game. I used to fret so much over every single choice that I made in Stardew Valley, only to later find out that I can actually change most of it. For example, if you choose a profession when leveling up that you later regret, you can come to the sewers and visit the Statue of Uncertainty and pay 10,000 gold to change any skills profession that you want. When you go to sleep that night, you'll be asked which profession you'd like to choose. You can change everything about your appearance, including your gender, in the wizard's basement for 500 gold using this Shrine of Illusions here. To do this, you need either 4 hearts with the wizard or to have reached the witch's hut so you can teleport to his basement. You can dump your chosen boyfriend or girlfriend and get divorced from your spouse, and you can even reverse the decision to have children by turning them into doves because that's totally a normal thing to do. You can even get rid of your pets using butterfly powder, which is bordering on the wrong way to play Stardew Valley, but I'm not going to put that on you. I can think of a handful of reasons you might want to do that, so you get a pass. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that you shouldn't worry about regretting your decisions because most of them are reversible. One thing I will say is that the choice of whatever you want to put in your cave and signing up to Joja Mart are two of the few permanent decisions that you can make, so if you do these things and then save your game, there is no coming back that I'm aware of. I pretty much ignored cooking in Stardew for years unless it was for food that provided luck buffs, but you should not sleep on food buffs like I did. You can use many different dishes and drinks to make your chores around the valley a lot easier, specifically when it comes to skills. For example, the farming buff provided from dishes such as complete breakfast or farmer's lunch increases your watering can and hoe proficiency, meaning that they use less energy, and they also affect the quality of the crops that you can harvest. The fishing buff is probably my favourite because with it you can catch fish that would normally not be available to you until you level up. For example, if you consume a buff that takes you all the way to level 10 fishing, you can then go and catch legendary fish earlier than you technically should be able to. Of course, it also increases fishing rod proficiency, reducing the amount of energy that throwing out your line costs. Foraging buffs increase your axe proficiency, reducing the energy required to swing your axe, and they also affect the amount of berries that you can get from bushes when shaking them in the appropriate seasons. Mining buffs only increase your pickaxe proficiency, and attack buffs increase your attack power, both of which are super useful in the mines, skull cavern, and the volcano. And if you're ever curious about what a specific skill buff has done for you, when you eat food with a skill related buff, you can actually see it reflected in your skills tab in the menu. Do you hate Pierre? Do you wish you could avoid giving him your money as much as possible? Great, then don't be like me and forget that the mill exists. You can use the mill to make wheat flour out of wheat, sugar out of beets, and rice out of, surprise surprise, unmilled rice. But that's not all. You can avoid buying even more cooking materials from Pierre by putting corn, sunflowers, or sunflower seeds into an oil maker to make oil, and you can also plop some rice into a keg to make your own vinegar. If you really wanted to go a step further, you could also have a few seed makers on the go and duplicate seeds every season for the next year, meaning that you would only ever have to shop at Pierre's once a season during your first year. But who would be petty enough to do that, am I right? Something that I regularly forget to do and never realized was important when I first started playing Stardew Valley was to set up tappers. More specifically, I never realized that I shouldn't be deforesting my entire farm and that I should probably keep a few of each tree for some tappers. Ideally, once you hit level 1 foraging, you can find seeds when chopping down trees. You can then set up a little tapping area on your farm to keep it nice and neat. Crafting tappers once you hit level 4. A pro tip here, if you place down paths around the bottom of your trees, you can avoid seeds falling from them and growing and getting in the way. Now, tappers can take quite a while to produce anything, so the earlier you set them up, the better, as the resources produced by the main 3 trees, maple, oak, and pine, are used to craft some pretty useful things. Maple syrup is used in the recipe for bee houses, pine tar is used to craft speed grow, rain totems, and looms, and oak resin is used to make kegs and deluxe speed grow. I wish that I had known that you can move and customize your farm buildings before I started playing Stardew. I used to just get something built and then accept that it lived there forever. Except it doesn't. You can move literally every building on your farm, including the greenhouse and your farmhouse, although the ability to move your house was added in version 1.6. You can also customize a lot of different buildings as long as they've been fully upgraded. You can change the color of your house's roof before it's been upgraded, but once it's had its second upgrade, you can adjust the color of the walls, the window frames, and the roof. The big shed, deluxe coop, deluxe barn, and stable can also all be customized, and you can even copy and paste the colors from one building to another so that everything matches, and it's free and instant. I ignored fertilizer for way too long, but it is super worth it. In the early game, you can craft your own basic fertilizer for super cheap, and it costs just 2 sap for a little boost in quality for your crops. And in the early game, the extra quality means a little extra money, so it's definitely worth it. You could argue that it's better to just plant more crops for more money, but that also uses more energy and takes away from other activities you could be doing. Speed Grow and Deluxe Speed Grow are super useful, especially if you're growing strawberries that you bought at the Egg Festival. If you can get your strawberries planted the exact same day as the Egg Festival and then use Speed Grow, you can actually get 3 harvests instead of just 2, which is a massive boost to your profits during year 1. This is made a lot easier to do if you hoe, water, and fertilize the required area in the morning before the festival so that you're not in a rush to do it when the festival is over. However, the best fertilizer in the entire game is Deluxe Retaining Soil, which keeps your soil watered overnight every single night, removing the need to water your plants at all. You get the recipe from the trader on Ginger Island, and it is incredibly cheap to craft. A little bonus tip here, you can carry fertilizers through different seasons by making sure that something that can grow in both seasons is planted where you have your fertilizer. Fiber seeds are great for every single season, and corn can be used from summer to fall. And if you're using deluxe retaining soil, I think it's worth it to just plant fiber seeds to carry it over, and then get rid of the growing fiber on the first day of the next season to plant your more seasonally appropriate seeds. You can also use deluxe retaining soil infinitely in the greenhouse and on Ginger Island, which don't care about seasons changing or crows taking your crops. The temptation to sell every last thing that you get while exploring the mines can be pretty big, and I wish I hadn't done exactly that in my first few playthroughs. Everything that monsters drop can be repurposed for something else, so it is worth holding on to all of that monster loot. Slime is used to make many things, although it's most useful for oil makers, wild bait, and monster musk. Bug meat is relatively easy to farm, and it's also used to craft bait, wild bait, bug steaks, which are super handy for healing in the early game, and magic bait, one of the best ways to ensure that you catch every single fish. Bat wings are used to craft lightning rods and are another key ingredient for making monster musk. Solar essence is used for making mega bombs and hyper speed grow, both of which are super useful for very different reasons. Void essence is another key ingredient for making mega bombs, and you can accumulate hundreds of all of these ingredients pretty early on in the game, and if you hoard them away, you'll be more than grateful later on. For example, having a large amount of solar and void essence on hand to make mega bombs when you're in your Skull Cavern era can be a lifesaver. Hoes are important. Everybody needs a hoe. When I first started playing Stardew Valley, I didn't realize the true importance of having a hoe. I used to regularly leave my hoe behind in my storage, and then I'd come across one of these little wiggly spots and either have to run all the way back home to get my hoe or just ignore it. This ended up with me having a very incomplete museum way too late into the game, and then having to grind for artifact spots and specifically search for them every single day, which becomes pretty boring. Another tip related to hoes is that hoeing up the entire beach during the winter can yield you a whole lot of snow yams and winter roots, which you can either sell for a profit or keep to make yourself some wild winter seeds, whether for planting or for making your own tea saplings. We briefly touched on this already, but don't make the same mistakes I have. I used to spend a lot of time at the start of my saves just completely decimating and deforesting my farm. The fact that the scythe doesn't use any energy at all makes it very tempting to just go to town on your farm and get rid of all of the extra grass growing here and there, but wait. You won't get any hay from your grass until you've gotten Robin to build you a silo. And if you cut down all the trees in your farm without planting any new ones, you won't be able to get any tappers up and going without waiting for new trees to grow, and you'll probably have a hard time finding more wood when you run out. I deeply regret the amount of time that I have spent running back and forth between my farm and the rest of the map to store things in my storage at home, because you can just place chests anywhere, like literally anywhere. Put a chest down in the entrance to the mines for all of your extra loot, and while you're at it, plop a couple of furnaces down too and smelt your ore as you go. You can put a chest down inside the blacksmiths and store your bars in there for future upgrades. Better yet, you can put some furnaces down here too and get your ore smelted into bars right in front of Clint's face. You can drop some chests near your favorite fishing spots and never run out of space in your inventory again. Hell, you could even go as far enough as to use some of the free space around the valley for some of your machines, such as using the desert for your wine operation. Keep in mind that chests will be knocked out of the way if placed in a villager's path, but machines and other items will straight up be destroyed, so be careful where you place them. During events, such as the Calico Desert event, a different map is loaded, which means you won't lose anything that you've placed and it will all return to normal once the festival is over. I wish that I had taken more advantage of the space given to me inside my farm buildings when I started playing. It is much easier to keep your machines inside the relevant buildings and it saves time. You can keep mayo machines and looms in your coop, and mayo machines, cheese presses and looms in your barn, as well as some oil makers either inside or outside to process truffles. And if you're wondering why I said you could keep a mayo machine in your barn, ostriches. Also, if you're really obsessed with waking up first thing in the morning and taking care of your animals, you can now place a bed in your coop and barn. I wish that I had known that quests don't actually matter that much. And by that, I mean that important quests will never time out as they aren't time sensitive, and the ones that are time sensitive don't actually matter. For example, the quests that you get at the board outside of Pierre's are all time sensitive, and they will indicate how long you have to complete them, but there is no penalty for letting them run out. Completing them gets you some money, some friendship points, and sometimes a prize ticket, but taking a quest and not fulfilling it is perfectly fine. And speaking of quests, if this little symbol here in the corner is annoying but you don't feel like completing the quest that it's asking you for, you can just cancel your quests. Many of the quests that aren't story related can just be cancelled and removed from your quest list entirely, although some of them can't. I wish that I had known much earlier that Krobus actually sells many, many useful things. Obviously, he sells a star drop as well as some pretty pricey things like the Wizard's Catalog for 150,000 gold, or the Return Scepter for 2 million gold, but he also sells other deceptively useful things. He has a fixed stock which includes the recipe for the Wicked statue, which actually has a couple of different uses that I go over in my 100 Stardew Valley Facts video, which should be in the description below, and the sign of the vessel, which can be placed on fish ponds to display how many fish are in each pond. However, his rotating stock is where it gets interesting. On Wednesdays, he sells 1 fish out of selection of 10, or a magnet. The reason that this is interesting is because 6 of the fish that he sells are needed for the community centre, and a few of them are found in specific seasons or weather, such as the shad, which can only be found during rainy days, or the tiger trout, which can only be found during fall and winter. So, grabbing them from Krobus can save you some trouble and some time. Every Friday, Krobus also sells 1 singular iridium sprinkler for 10,000 gold, which is absolutely huge. If you don't have the farming level to craft them, or the ability to get batteries yet, or the willingness to farm iridium from the Skull Cavern, just get yourself 1 iridium sprinkler per week from Krobus and you can get ahead of the game. And that is it for today's video. Thank you all again so much for 30,000 subscribers. Fun fact, it would take you around 8 hours to count out loud all the way to 30,000. No, I didn't try it, I just googled it. You can follow me on Twitch, where I am currently working on replicating Pelican Town in Pocopia, on Blue Sky, where I post random thoughts, and of course subscribe to the channel for more Stardew tips and tricks. Bonus question for those of you that watch all the way to the end, which by the way, thank you so much, I really appreciate that. Who do you think would win in a fight? An air fryer or a toaster oven? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, love you, bye!